the humility, all those nice words are creeping into our repertoire. As we meet on Sundays, and because of this, I was very busy in many of the areas, living in Charleston. I serve on our tour guide commission, and usually when Mayor Riley was talking, I'd ride my bicycle. I live downtown, and complain about what the tour guides would say. So I became a member of the tour guide commission and wrote the Black History section of the tour guide manual. So I'm kind of a little bit familiar with things as we go through this life process that we're having. And which means that for the few minutes that I have, I would like to talk about maybe the aftermath. As I said, the world came. I was at the church every day. There would be people who would be coming, and even though the church was closed temporarily for visitors, people would come as far as, I think there was a rabbi and his wife from New York City. We just want to come, or someone from LA, or someone from Montezuma, New Mexico. We don't want to come in, we just want to be here. They didn't want to come in, and so that kind of touched us a little. And then people came with gifts, as Georgie can say that in front of the church every day people left flowers and all kinds of artifacts. Joe from California sent me 500 organic teddy bears. And we had so many years and we had no place to put them. Of course, the mayor gave us space for a year at one of the city's facilities. And then later on, the Catholic Diocese helped. And then recently, as of May 18th, the County Council gave us information or space at the pre-release center in North Charleston, South Carolina. So, which means that so many people have come in, you know, the money donations, flowers, and of course the Boys in Blue, the Charleston County Police Department. I taught the deputy chief. And so they moved them every day, and George talked about calm, all of the volunteers, because George was the one that called me, Liz, what are we going to do? And we met a couple days later, and that formed the Memory Review Committee. So we have the Historic Charleston Foundation, as he said, Drayton Hall, we have the the Trust, we have the South Carolina Historical Society, the City of Charleston, the Yorktown, all of the historic preservation. Of course, you know, in 1931, preservation began in the Holy City, and we're still at that for a very, so many things have happened. There have been so many panel discussions, reconciliation. I became a member of a lot of predominantly white churches, Grace Cathedral. They have a book study, and of course Liz there, and so every Tuesday I go trotting over there, doing as I'm doing now, talking about just about anything that deals with the tragedy. Charleston is a warm and historic city. My family would say that, but that same Sunday when they came down, people were passing out waters to everyone in the street, all of the people on King Street. People come around the nation. I've talked about all of these areas. So on a daily basis, you see people coming to give us love, warmth, feeling of humility, and a sense of inclusion. So I do hope that, you know, what has happened, of course, sometimes I have students who say, well, what do you think is probably the greatest impact, not only nation, but South Carolina? And I do can say it, no water, unequivocally, was the coming down of the Confederate flag. And that was on July 17th. That has happened. So over the years, and when George and those would talk about all of the things that has happened, all of the organizations that have been forming, we find all of these things, so which means that, I don't want to say good, but you have to break an omelet, you know, break an egg to make an omelet. So which means that if anything good has happened as a result of that, then we can say that how can we use these experiences, as George has talked about, that's happened in Florida at the club, or what has happened in Charlottesville, or all of the things that has happened. So we feel that we want to be committed, not only as a church, a nation, a community, is to do things like we're talking about now. So what we're doing now is all of the history that has been written that could be in your archives, in your museums, in your libraries. And not only that, but a lot of little things have happened. One of the things, as an educator, I was coordinator of the ethnic studies for the Charleston County School District and wrote a book about the contributions of 7 ethnic Americans. It was called The Ethnic History of South Carolina, South Carolina's Contribution to American History. Not only African Americans, but Greeks, Jews, Scotch-Irish, and Native Americans were included. And so I think George was on the 18th or the 17th of November, is that the State Department contacted me and asked that they are going to rewrite their curriculum standards and wanted to make sure that the June 17th event could be included. And so they are still in the process. It's just since November. So if we're talking about the aftermath, the things that have been happening, so which means that the history will be written for inclusion for that particular incident. And so this is another way that museums and libraries can get copies of these areas. And of course you can visit Emanuel. And the last thing I'm going to say, that certainly on behalf of our current minister, the Reverend S.C. Manning, and Goff, who is our presiding elder, and Samuel Green, who is the bishop of the 7th Episcopal District, we thank you for your attention.
Would you use the microphone, please?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, is that better? So sorry about that. Good morning. My name is Carol Poplin. I'm the director of HW Exhibits. And for the past 2 years, it's been my pleasure and privilege to help Emanuel Archives and History Committee and their memorabilia subcommittee to develop exhibits and tributes. Exhibitions of the tributes and memorials given to Mother Emanuel since June 2015. Today I'd like to share some of the information about the exhibits and discuss some of the challenges these types of endeavors pose for both the exhibit developer and the community affected by the tragedy. In late May 2016, I was contacted by Liz and Meg Moen, who is the archivist with the City of Charleston, who told me about the committee's desire to host an exhibition of memorabilia as part of the many events planned for the first anniversary commemoration. The subcommittee members have already held meetings to determine how and where the exhibit could be mounted, which objects should be displayed. Part of the initial challenge was that only a small portion of the hundreds of objects left or sent to the church had been cataloged. The processed materials did include about 400 prayer quilts sent from across the nation. As a result, the committee decided to mount an exhibit of just the quilts. They believe the prayer quilts spoke well to the commemoration theme, Victory in the Valley, and that exhibit visitors could find the quilts beautiful and compelling and appreciate their power as objects of comfort.